Document. Part 1 of They Saw It Happen the exact moment Earth stopped being polite. Willow Creek was the kind of town where nothing much happened. It sat nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, far away from big cities and their noise. The streets were quiet, lined with old oak trees that shaded small houses and cozy shops. People here knew each other by name, waved when they passed on the street, and gathered at the local diner for coffee in the mornings. Life moved slowly, predictably, almost like clockwork. Ethan Carter loved this about Willow Creek. He wasn't one for chaos or loud places. What he loved most was sitting on the roof of his house every night, looking up at the stars. His telescope was his prized possession, a gift from Laura, his wife, 5 years ago when they first moved to the town. Every evening after dinner, Ethan would climb up the ladder to the rooftop, set up his telescope, and spend hours gazing at the sky. Sometimes Laura joined him, bringing a thermos of hot cocoa and a blanket to keep warm. They didn't talk much. During these moments, it was enough just to sit together under the vast expanse of stars. Laura thought her husband's hobby was charming, even if she didn't fully understand it. She liked hearing him explain things, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about constellations or planets. To Ethan, the universe felt alive, full of mysteries waiting to be solved. But lately, something had been bothering him for the past few nights. He'd noticed something strange in the sky. Faint pulsating light near Jupiter caught his attention. At first, he thought it might be a satellite, or maybe a glitch in his equipment. But no matter how many times he adjusted the lens or recalibrated the settings, the light remained. "Do you see that?" Ethan asked Laura one night, pointing toward the glowing dot through the eyepiece. She leaned over and squinted into the telescope. "It looks like a star." "It's not a star," Ethan said, shaking his head. "Stars don't move like that, and they definitely don't pulse." Laura frowned. "So what is it?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But whatever it is, it's not supposed to be there." Laura didn't press him further. She trusted Ethan's instinct. He had always been the curious type, the kind of person who needed answers to everything. Still, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something about the way he said those words, as though he himself wasn't sure whether to be excited or afraid. Across town, Mia Bennett was having a similar feeling of unease. As a high school science teacher, she spent her days explaining the basics of biology, chemistry, and physics to teenagers who mostly seemed more interested in their phones than the lessons. But despite the occasional eye rolls and distracted whispers, Mia loved her job. Teaching gave her purpose, especially since her own dreams of becoming an astrophysicist had faded long ago. Now, she poured all her passion into inspiring her students to dream bigger than she ever had. That week, Mia had assigned her class a project about astronomy. She wanted them to pick a planet or celestial object and research its properties. Most of the kids groaned at the idea, but a few perked up, asking questions about black holes and supernovas. One student, a shy boy named Ryan, stayed after class to ask if he could focus on extraterrestrial life instead. Mia smiled and told him yes, encouraging him to think outside the box. But as she drove home that evening, her mind kept drifting back to reports she'd read online earlier that day. Strange weather patterns were being reported all over the world. Birds migrating off course, tides rising unexpectedly high, satellites malfunctioning without explanation. Scientists dismissed it as anomalies caused by solar activity, but Mia wasn't so sure. Something about it felt connected, like pieces of a puzzle that hadn't quite come together yet. When she got home, she found her younger brother, Jake, already there. He worked at the local fire station and often stopped by after his shifts. Tonight, though, he looked unusually tense. "You okay?" Mia asked, setting her bag down on the kitchen counter. Jake sighed and ran a hand through his short brown hair. "Not really. We've been getting calls nonstop tonight. Car accidents, power outages, people freaking out because their GPS systems went haywire. It's like everything's breaking down at once." Mia frowned. "Any idea what's causing?" No clue," Jake replied. "Could be anything, a solar storm? Some weird tech glitch, but honestly, I've never seen anything like this before." Mia nodded, trying to mask her growing concern. She didn't want to alarm Jake, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was happening. Something beyond anyone's control. Later that night, as Mia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed the day's events in her mind. The strange weather, the technical failures, Jake's worried expression, it all felt like warning signs. And then there was Ethan Carter. She barely knew him, they weren't close friends, just acquaintances who exchanged polite hellos at the grocery store. But she remembered overhearing him mention something about unusual activity in the sky last week. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it. But now, before she could finish the thought, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Jake. Asterix powers out again. Whole neighborhood's dark. Asterix Mia sat up quickly, heart pounding. She grabbed her flashlight and headed to the window. Sure enough, the streetlights were off, and the usual glow of porch lights was gone. Even the distant hum of electricity seemed absent. Outside, neighbors wandered around, confused and anxious, their voices carrying faintly through the still air. As Mia stood there watching, a sudden realization hit her. This wasn't just a random outage. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than Willow Creek, bigger than any single town or city. And somehow, she knew it was only the beginning. Back on his rooftop, Ethan stared at the pulsating light once more. The darkness below made the stars above seem brighter, sharper, almost too vivid. He tried to focus on the mysterious object near Jupiter, but his thoughts kept drifting to Laura and the kids sleeping inside. What if this wasn't just a curiosity? What if it meant something? Something dangerous? He shook his head, trying to push the thought away. Fear wouldn't help him figure this out. All he could do was watch, wait, and hope that whatever was coming wouldn't change everything he held dear. Little did Ethan or anyone else in Willow Creek know, the calm they cherished was about to shatter completely. *** document. Part 3 of They Saw It Happen, the exact moment Earth stopped being polite. The alien vessel hung in the sky like a second moon, its surface shimmering as if alive. People in Willow Creek gathered in their yards and on the streets, staring upward with a mix of awe and terror. Some whispered prayers, others snapped photos with their phones, even though the images came out blurry and distorted. The air buzzed with tension, uncertainty, thick enough to touch. Ethan stood at his window, unable to tear his eyes away from the massive craft. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. He had spent years studying the stars, imagining distant worlds and civilizations, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. The reality of it felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Yet there was no denying if the ship was real, and it wasn't leaving. Mia sat beside him, her hands clenched tightly together. She had always considered herself a rational person, someone who trusted science and logic above all else. But now, faced with something so far beyond human understanding, she felt small and helpless. Still, she forced herself to focus. If they were going to make sense of this, they needed answers and fast. "We need to share this," Mia said finally, breaking the silence. "Not just with the town, but with everyone. If we don't tell people what we know, someone else will." Ethan frowned and "Say what?" "That we decoded an alien signal using a telescope from my roof. No one's going to take us seriously." "They will if we show them proof," Mia insisted. "Your data, your notes, everything you've been tracking. It's solid evidence. We can't keep this to ourselves." Laura, who had been pacing nervously behind them, stopped mid-step. "You're not thinking of going public, are you?" "Ethan, this isn't some science fair project. This is aliens. Actual aliens. Do you really want to put yourself into our family in the middle of that?" Ethan hesitated. Duh. Laura wasn't wrong. Going public would mean scrutiny, questions, maybe even danger. But sitting back and doing nothing felt worse. If the world was changing, shouldn't they try to understand why? "What choice do we have?" Ethan asked softly. "If we don't step forward, someone else will. And who knows what they'll say or do?" Mia nodded. "Exactly. We owe it to everyone to at least try." After a long pause, Ethan sighed. Fine, but we need to be smart about this. Let's start small local news outlets, maybe the radio station in town. If we can get the word out here, it might spread farther. The next morning, Ethan and Mia drove to the Willow Creek Gazette, the town's modest newspaper office. The editor, a wiry man named Harold, greeted them with skepticism when they explained what they wanted. "You're telling me you've been tracking an alien signal?" Harold asked, raising an eyebrow. "And now there's a spaceship hovering over our town?" "It sounds crazy, I know," Ethan admitted. "But we have proof. Look." He pulled out his laptop and opened the files he'd compiled: charts, graphs, screenshots of the pulsating light near Jupiter. "This isn't guesswork. Something's been communicating with us, and that ship is part of it." Harold studied the screen for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "Even if I believe you, which I'm not saying I do, how am I supposed to print this? People will think I've lost my mind. Then don't print it," Mia suggested. "Post it online. Share it on social media. Let people see for themselves." Harold hesitated, but eventually agreed. Within hours, the story went live on the Gazette's website. At first, reactions were mixed. Some readers dismissed it as a hoax, while others called for calm, urging everyone to wait for official statements. But as more details emerged, including screenshots of Ethan's data and eyewitness accounts of the ship, the Post began to gain traction by nightfall. The story had spread beyond Willow Creek. News outlets across the country picked it up, running headlines like "Small-Town Astronomer Decodes Alien Signal and Massive UFOs Sighted Over Midwest Town." Reporters flooded into Willow Creek, setting up cameras and microphones outside Ethan's house. Phones rang nonstop, and messages poured in from strangers around the world. At first, Ethan tried to answer every call, explaining his findings patiently to anyone who asked. But the sheer volume of attention quickly became overwhelming. Laura grew increasingly anxious, keeping their kids, Noah and Sophie, indoors to shield them from the chaos outside. Even Mia found herself struggling to keep up, fielding questions from colleagues and students alike. Despite the pressure, Ethan refused to back down. He knew the truth mattered more than ever. If humanity was facing contact with extraterrestrial life, they needed to approach it with honesty, not fear or denial. Meanwhile, Jake Bennett watched the commotion unfold with growing unease. As a firefighter, he had dealt with emergencies before, but nothing compared to this. The power outage had turned into a full-blown crisis, with reports of panic spreading nationwide. People were stockpiling food, barricading themselves in their homes, or fleeing town altogether. Jake tried to maintain order, organizing volunteers to patrol the streets and prevent looting. But even he couldn't ignore the larger threat looming overhead. The alien ship hadn't moved since it appeared, and no one knew what it wanted or whether it intended to harm them. One evening, as Jake walked home from the fire station, he spotted a group of men gathered near the edge of town. They carried makeshift weapons, baseball bats, crowbars, even hunting rifles, and spoke in hushed tones. When Jake approached, they fell silent, watching him warily. "What's going on?" "Here," Jake asked, crossing his arms. One of the men stepped forward. "We're getting ready," he said gruffly.
"Ow."
"For whatever comes next." "For what?" Jake pressed. "You think attacking that thing is going to help?" "It's better than sitting around waiting to die," another man snapped. "You heard Carter's story, right? Aliens sent us a message, and now they're here. What do you think happens next? You think they're here to chat?" Jake shook his head. "I don't know what they want." "But picking a fight isn't the answer." The men exchanged glances, unconvinced. Jake knew he wouldn't change their minds easily, but he couldn't let them act recklessly. If violence broke out, it could escalate quickly and put the entire town in danger. "I get it," Jake said finally. "We're all scared, but we can't let fear drive us. If we want to survive this, we need to stick together. Work with Ethan and Mia. Listen to what they're saying. They're trying to help." The leader of the group scowled, but didn't argue further. For now, at least, Jake had bought some time. But he knew tensions would only rise as the days passed. Back at Ethan's house, the atmosphere was tense. Laura paced the living room, glancing nervously at the reporters camped outside. Noah and Sophie played quietly in their room, sensing their mother's anxiety. Ethan and Mia sat at the kitchen table, poring over new data that continued to stream in from amateur astronomers around the globe. "It's not just us," Ethan murmured, pointing to a map on his laptop. "People everywhere are reporting strange signals, similar patterns, same coordinates. Whoever sent this message wants everyone to see it." Mia nodded grimly. "Which means it's not random. They chose Earth for a reason. But why?" Ethan asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Why send a signal, then show up without explanation? It doesn't make sense." Before Mia could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the house. Ethan stood up and opened the door to find a man in a dark suit standing on the porch. Behind him, two others waited in a black sedan parked at the curb. "Mr. Carter?" the man asked, flashing a badge. "We're with the federal government. We'd like to speak with you about your recent discoveries." Ethan froze, his heart pounding. He glanced back at Mia, who looked equally alarmed. Whatever was coming next, it was clear their quiet lives in Willow Creek were over. "Come in," Ethan said finally, stepping aside. As the agents entered the house, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change for better or worse. *** document, Part 2 of They Saw It Happen. The exact moment Earth stopped being polite. ***. The power outage in Willow Creek lasted longer than anyone expected. By morning, the town was still wrapped in an eerie silence. No hum of refrigerators. No flicker of streetlights. No distant rumble of cars driving down the empty roads. The only sounds were the chirping of birds and the occasional murmur of worried voices as neighbors gathered on front porches. Trying to make sense of what had happened, Ethan woke up early, groggy but restless. He climbed down from the roof, where he'd spent half the night staring at the strange light near Jupiter. Laura was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a candle burning in the center. She looked tired, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. "Still nothing?" Ethan asked, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was dead, its hands frozen at 11:47 p.m., the exact time the power had cut out. Laura shook her head. "No updates. I tried turning on the radio earlier, but it's just static. Same with the TV." Ethan frowned. This wasn't normal. Power outages happen, sure, but they were usually fixed within hours. And radios? They shouldn't be affected unless something much bigger was going on. He grabbed his phone from the counter, hoping for a signal, but the screen remained blank. Even the battery icon refused to show any charge. "I'll check the generator," Ethan said finally. "At least we can get some lights working." He headed to the garage, pulling out the old portable generator he kept for emergencies. A few tries, but eventually, the machine sputtered to life. The faint hum filled the house, and Ethan plugged in a small lamp. The warm glow chased away some of the gloom, but it didn't do much to ease the tension in the air. "Do you think it's aliens?" Laura asked hesitantly as Ethan returned to the kitchen. He stopped mid-step, surprised by the question. "Aliens?" Shrugged. Looking embarrassed. "I don't know. It's just everything feels so strange right now. The light you saw last night, the power going out, all these weird things happening around the world. What if it's not natural?" Ethan hesitated. He wanted to laugh it off, tell her she was being paranoid, but part of him couldn't dismiss the idea entirely. After all, what else could explain the pulsating light near Jupiter, or the global disturbances everyone was talking about? I don't know, he admitted quietly, but I'm going to find out. Mia woke up to the sound of her brother Jake pacing back and forth in the living room. He was on the phone, his voice tense and clipped. When he noticed her standing in the doorway, he held up a finger, signaling her to wait. Yes, I understand, Jake said into the receiver. But how are we supposed to respond if we don't even know what's causing it? Okay? Thanks. He hung up and let out a frustrated sigh. What's going on? Mia asked, walking over to sit beside him. Jake rubbed his temples. That was dispatch. We're getting calls from all over the county. People are reporting their GPS systems failing, cell towers down, and weird interference with electronic devices. Some guy claims his car shut off while he was driving on the highway. Mia felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just a local issue anymore. Whatever was happening, it was spreading and fast. Did they say anything about what's causing it? She asked. Jake shook his head. Not yet, but it's not just here. Apparently other towns are experiencing the same thing. Hell, even cities like Chicago and Los Angeles are having problems. Mia's mind raced. If major cities were affected, then this wasn't some isolated glitch. Something far more significant was at play. She thought about the astronomy project she'd assigned her students and wondered if any of them had noticed anything unusual. Maybe Ryan, the boy obsessed with extraterrestrial life, had theories worth exploring. I need to go to school, Mia said suddenly, standing up. Jake raised an eyebrow. Now, with everything shutting down, you really think that's a good idea? I have to, she insisted. If something big is happening, my students deserve to know. Besides, maybe someone there has information we don't. Jake didn't argue. He knew better than to try changing his sister's mind once she'd made up her mind. Instead, he handed her a flashlight. Be careful, he said, and call me if you need anything. The drive to school was surreal, without traffic, lights or street lamps. The roads felt abandoned. Mia passed a few cars along the way, their drivers looking just as confused as she felt. At one point, she saw a group of people gathered outside a gas station, arguing loudly about whether the pumps would work without electricity. She kept driving, her grip tight on the steering wheel. When she arrived at the school, she found the parking lot nearly empty. Most teachers hadn't bothered coming in, assuming classes would be canceled. But when Mia stepped inside, she discovered a handful of students lingering in the hallways, unsure of what to do. Ryan spotted her first. Ms. Bennett, he called out, hurrying over. Have you heard anything about what's going on? Mia forced a smile. Not much, unfortunately. But I'm here to figure it out. Did anyone bring their laptops or tablets? A few kids nodded and pulled out their devices. To everyone's relief, most of them still worked, though none could connect to the internet. Mia divided the students into groups and assigned each one a task, researching recent weather anomalies, tracking news, reports, and monitoring social media for updates. As the students got to work, Mia retreated to her classroom. She pulled out her own laptop and opened a browser window. Typing keywords like global power outage and electronic interference, the results were alarming. Reports poured in from every corner of the globe satellites malfunctioning. Planes grounded due to navigation errors, entire regions plunged into darkness. Scientists speculated about solar flares or geomagnetic storms, but no one seemed certain. Her thoughts drifted back to Ethan Carter. She remembered seeing him at the grocery store last week talking animatedly about some strange object he'd spotted in the sky. Could he have seen something important? Something others had missed? Before she could second-guess herself, Mia grabbed her phone and searched for Ethan's number. She didn't know him well, but desperate times called for desperate measures. To her surprise, he answered almost immediately. Hello? His voice sounded wary but curious. Ethan, it's Mia Bennett. We've met a few times. I teach science at the high school. Look, I know this is sudden, but I need your help. There was a pause on the other end. My help? With what? I think you might have seen something important last night. Light near Jupiter, it's connected to what's happening now, isn't it? Another pause. Longer this time. Finally, Ethan spoke. You're right, I've been watching it for days. It's not a star or a satellite, it's something else. Mia's heart skipped a beat. Can I come over?
Out!
This. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan agreed. Okay, but hurry. Something tells me we're running out of time. By the time Mia reached Ethan's house, the sun was beginning to set. Casting long shadows across the quiet streets, Ethan greeted her at the door, his expression serious but welcoming. Laura hovered nearby, holding a tray of cookies and offering a nervous smile. Thanks for coming, Ethan said, leading Mia to the living room. I've been analyzing the data from my telescope. It's definitely a pattern to the light it's pulsing in mathematical sequences. Mia's eyes widened. Mathematical sequences? Like a message? Exactly? Ethan replied. It's too precise to be random. Someone or something is trying to communicate. For the next hour, the two pored over Ethan's notes. Piecing together fragments of the signal, Laura brought them coffee, occasionally chiming in with questions or observations. Slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. The pulses corresponded to coordinates not for Earth, but for a specific point in space. It's pointing toward Proxima Centauri, Ethan said, his voice tinged with awe. The closest star system to ours. Mia leaned back, stunned. So, you're saying this is alien? Real alien contact? Ethan nodded. It has to be. The question is, why now? And why us? As the three of them sat in silence, contemplating the implications, a low rumble echoed in the distance. At first, it sounded like thunder, but the noise grew louder, deeper, until the ground beneath their feet vibrated slightly. Ethan rushed to the window, peering outside. What he saw made his blood run cold. In the western sky, a massive shape loomed against the horizon, shimmered like liquid metal, impossibly large and silent. Lights blinked across its surface, pulsing. In rhythm with the signal Ethan had been tracking. Oh my God, Laura whispered, joining him at the window. What is that? Ethan swallowed hard. I think it's them. Mia joined them, her face pale but determined. We need to tell. Someone. The government, NASA, anyone who will listen. Ethan shook his head. And say what? That we decoded an alien signal using a backyard telescope? They'll never believe us. But we can't just sit here and do nothing, Mia argued.
Whatever.
It's happening now. We have to act. Ethan hesitated, torn between caution and urgency. In the end, he nodded. You're right. Let's gather everything we have and figure out our next move. Because one thing's for sure, nothing will ever be the same again. Inside, the massive craft continued to hover, casting an otherworldly glow over Willow Creek. The calm before. The storm had ended. Now the real challenge was about to begin. Asterisk document, part 4 of They Saw It Happen the Exact Moment. Earth stopped being polite ***. The agents introduced themselves as Agent Monroe and Agent Fields. They carried briefcases, wore serious expressions, and wasted no time getting to the point, sitting stiffly at Ethan's kitchen table. They flipped open their notebooks and began asking questions. So, Mr. Carter, Agent Monroe said, his voice calm but firm, you claim to have decoded a signal from space. Can you walk us through how you came to this conclusion? Ethan hesitated for a moment, glancing at Mia, who gave him a small nod of encouragement. He took a deep breath and started explaining everything: the pulsating light near Jupiter, the mathematical patterns he'd identified, the coordinates pointing toward Proxima Centauri. As he spoke, the agents listened intently, jotting down notes without interrupting. When Ethan finished, Agent Fields leaned forward slightly. And you believe this signal is connected to the object currently hovering over your town? Yes, Ethan replied. It has to be. The timing, the location, it's too much of a coincidence? Agent Monroe exchanged a glance with his partner before turning.
Act, Ethan.
We've been monitoring similar reports from other parts of the world. Your findings match what we're seeing globally. That's why we're here. We need your help. Ethan blinked, surprised by the request. My help? What can I do that you can't? You're one of the few people who noticed the signal early. Agent Fields explained. Your data could provide valuable insights into what these visitors want. Mia chimed in, her tone cautious. What exactly are you planning to do with this information? We're assembling a team of experts, Agent Monroe said. Scientists, engineers, linguists all working together to analyze the situation. If there's any chance of communication we need to prepare for. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. On one hand, this was what he had hoped for, a chance to contribute, to make sense of the chaos. On the other hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that stepping into the government's world would come with risks. Still, he nodded slowly. Okay, I'll help. Laura, who had been listening silently from the doorway, stepped forward. What about my family? What happens to them if you take Ethan away? Agent Monroe softened his tone. Mrs. Carter, we understand your concerns. For now, we're not asking anyone to leave Willow Creek, but we may need to relocate key individuals later, depending on developments. Rest assured, your safety will remain a priority. Though Laura didn't look entirely reassured, she didn't argue further. Instead, she turned to Ethan and whispered, Be careful. Later that evening, after the agents left, Ethan and Mia stayed up late discussing what had happened. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the generator, keeping the lights on. Outside reporters still lingered, though fewer than before. The sight of them made Ethan uneasy, a reminder of how quickly life had spiraled out of control. What do you think they'll do next? Mia asked, breaking the silence. Ethan shrugged. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's bigger than just us, bigger than Willow Creek. Mia nodded thoughtfully. Do you trust them? The agents, I mean. I'm not sure, Ethan admitted, but right now, they're all we've got. If they're willing to listen, maybe we stand a chance. As the night wore on, neither of them could sleep. They kept thinking about the ship above the town, its presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. It hadn't moved since it arrived, and no one knew what it wanted or whether it intended to stay. The next morning brought more changes. A convoy of military vehicles rolled into Willow Creek, setting up checkpoints at the edges of town. Soldiers patrolled the streets, their rifles slung over their shoulders, while helicopters circled overhead. The sudden show of force sent shockwaves through the community. Some residents welcomed the troops, believing they were there to protect them. Others saw it as an invasion, a sign that things were spiraling dangerously out of control. Jake Bennett watched the soldiers with growing unease. He understood the need for security, but something about the military presence felt wrong. It reminded him of the armed men he'd encountered earlier, ordinary citizens preparing to fight back against forces they barely understood. Violence seemed inevitable, and Jake feared it would only escalate once the aliens revealed their intentions. At the fire station, Jake gathered his team for a meeting. Listen up, he said, pacing in front of them. Things are going to get messy. Probably sooner than we expect. Our job isn't to pick sides, it's to keep people safe. No matter what happens, we stick to that mission. His words earned nods of agreement, but the tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew the stakes were higher than ever. Meanwhile, Ethan and Mia joined a conference call organized by the federal agents. Dozens of voices echoed through the line, each belonging to experts from various fields. Astronomers shared observations of strange phenomena in the skies. Physicists debated potential explanations for the energy readings, and linguists speculated about possible methods of communication. One scientist, a woman named Dr. Karen Ellis, stood out among the group. Her sharp mind and clear explanations cut through the confusion, offering a glimmer of hope. If these beings are advanced enough to travel across space, she said, then they likely possess technology far beyond our understanding. Communication might not even rely on language as we know it. We should consider alternative methods: mathematics, visual symbols, perhaps even music. Her suggestion sparked a lively discussion, with participants throwing out ideas ranging from binary code to geometric patterns. Ethan found himself drawn into the conversation, contributing insights based on his own observations. For the first time in days, he felt a flicker of optimism. Maybe humanity wasn't completely helpless after all. Outside, the mood in Willow Creek grew darker. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and misinformation. Some claimed the aliens were here to conquer Earth, while others believed they were gods sent to punish humanity for its sins. Tempers flared, and arguments broke. Out in the streets, even the normally peaceful diner became a battleground of conflicting opinions. Laura tried to shield Noah and Sophie from the worst of it, keeping them occupied with games and books. But the children weren't blind to the tension around them. One afternoon, Sophie tugged at her mother's sleeve and asked, "Mommy, are the aliens going to hurt us?" Laura knelt down, pulling her daughter close. "No, sweetheart. Daddy and everyone else are working hard to make sure nothing bad happens." Sophie frowned, unconvinced. "But why are they here?" "I don't know," Laura admitted. "We'll figure it out, together." That evening, as Ethan returned home from another round of calls and meetings, he noticed something unusual. The alien ship, which had remained motionless for days, began emitting a low hum. It started softly, almost imperceptible, but grew louder until it filled the air like the sound of distant thunder. People stopped what they were doing, staring upward in stunned silence. Then, without warning, the ship's surface shifted. Panels slid apart, revealing rows of glowing symbols etched into its metallic skin. The symbols pulsed rhythmically, casting eerie shadows across the ground below. It was beautiful and terrifying. Ethan grabbed his telescope and rushed outside, scanning the ship for clues. Beside him, Mia did the same, her eyes wide with wonder. Whatever the aliens were doing, it felt deliberate, purposeful, like they were trying to say something. Suddenly, the symbols changed. They rearranged themselves into a pattern Ethan recognized. Instantly it matched the sequence he'd decoded from the original signal. His heart raced as realization dawned. "They're repeating the message," he whispered, turning to Mia. "It's the same one I found." Before Mia could respond, the symbols vanished, replaced by a single beam of light that shot straight into the sky. The beam split into multiple streams, fanning out across the horizon. Moments later, images appeared in the clouds, not photographs, but vivid projections that seemed to form directly in the minds of those watching. People gasped as visions unfolded before their eyes. Forests burning, oceans boiling, cities crumbling under waves of destruction. The images weren't random. They told a story, a grim warning of Earth's future, if humanity continued on its current path. Ethan and Mia watched in stunned silence, their worst fears confirmed. The aliens weren't invaders. They were observers, judges, perhaps even saviors. And they had come to deliver a verdict as the images faded and the sky returned to normal. An unnatural quiet settled over Willow Creek. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of what they had witnessed pressed down on everyone, heavy and unyielding. Ethan looked at Mia, his face pale but resolute. "This changes everything." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, but we can't give up. Not yet." Together, they stood beneath the stars, knowing the hardest part was still ahead. *** document Part 5 of They Saw It Happen the Exact Moment. Earth stopped being polite ***. The images burned into the minds of everyone in Willow Creek and across the globe. People couldn't look away, couldn't forget. The destruction they had witnessed wasn't just a vision. It felt real, visceral, as if they were living through it themselves. Forests ablaze, oceans rising like angry beasts swallowing cities whole. Skies choked with smoke and ash. It was a glimpse of Earth's future, raw and unfiltered. Ethan sat on his roof later that night, staring at the alien ship still hovering silently above the horizon. His mind replayed the scenes over and over again, each frame sharper and more haunting than the last. He understood now why the aliens had come. They weren't invaders or conquerors. They were enforcers, guardians of some kind. Their message was clear. Humanity's time was running out unless drastic changes were made. Mia joined him a few minutes later, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to Ethan without saying a word, sitting beside him in silence. Neither of them needed to speak. The weight of what they had seen hung heavy between them, pressing down like an invisible force. Finally, Mia broke the quiet. "Do you think people will believe it? The warning, I mean?" Ethan sighed, cradling the warm mug in his hands. "Some will. Others won't. There'll always be doubters, people who refuse to accept the truth. But those images, they leave little room for denial." Mia nodded slowly. "It's strange, isn't it? For years we've been warned about climate change, pollution, all the ways we're destroying the planet. Scientists have screamed themselves hoarse, but most people ignored them. Now aliens show up and say the same thing, and suddenly everyone listens. Because fear works," Ethan said bitterly. "People don't act until they're scared enough, until they see the fire closing in." Neither of them spoke for a while after that, letting the words hang in the cool night air. The town below was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of life replaced by a tense stillness. Even the reporters who had camped outside Ethan's house earlier seemed subdued, their cameras and microphones idle. Across town, Jake Bennett wrestled with his own thoughts. The projections had shaken him deeply, stirring memories of wildfires he'd fought in California years ago. Back then, he'd seen firsthand how quickly nature could turn against humanity when pushed too far. The images from the aliens felt like a grim echo of those days, a reminder of what awaited if nothing changed at the fire station. Jake gathered his team once more. "Listen," he began, pacing in front of them. "Whatever happens next, we need to stay ready. If panic breaks out, or worse, we're going to be the ones holding this town together. Got it?" His crew nodded, though their faces betrayed uncertainty. None of them knew how to prepare for something like this. Firefighting drills and emergency protocols felt woefully inadequate against the scale of the threat looming above them. Jake tried to sound confident, even if he didn't feel it. "We stick to what we know, protect the people, keep them safe. That's all we can do." As the meeting ended, Jake stepped outside, looking up at the alien ship. Its metallic surface shimmered faintly under the moonlight, almost hypnotic. He wondered what the aliens thought of humanity, whether they saw hope or despair, potential or failure, and he wondered if it even mattered anymore. Laura Carter spent the evening trying to comfort her children. Noah and Sophie clung to her, their wide eyes filled with questions she couldn't answer. They had seen the projections too, like everyone else, and the images terrified them. "Mommy, are we going to die?" Sophie asked softly, her voice trembling. Laura pulled her daughter closer, smoothing her hair. "No, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. Daddy and lots of other people are working hard to fix things. But what if they can't?" Noah chimed in, his young face unusually serious. "What if the aliens decide we're bad and destroy us?" Laura hesitated, unsure. How to respond? She wanted to reassure them, to promise everything would work out fine. But the truth was, she didn't know. No one did. Instead, she hugged both of them tightly. "All we can do is try our best together." By morning, the world had begun to react. News outlets buzzed with analysis and speculation. Governments issued statements urging calm. And social media exploded with reactions ranging from outrage to resignation. In Willow Creek, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some residents embraced the aliens' message, organizing community meetings to discuss environmental reforms. Others rejected it outright, dismissing the projections as propaganda or manipulation. One such group gathered near the edge of town, led by a man named Greg Parker. A former mechanic with a gruff demeanor and a distrust of authority, Greg had long believed the government was hiding secrets from ordinary citizens. The Helians' arrival only confirmed his suspicions. "They're not here to help us," Greg declared to the small crowd around him. "They're here to control us, to take what's ours." "And what exactly is ours?" A woman in the back called out. "You mean the planet we've been trashing for centuries?" Greg glared. "At her? I mean our freedom. You really think they'll let us live the way we want after this? They'll make rules, tell us what to do, how to live. Mark my words, this is just the beginning." The argument went on for hours, growing louder and angrier as more people joined. By midday, Jake arrived to mediate, stepping between the opposing sides before things turned violent. "Enough," he shouted, raising his hands. "Fighting each other won't solve anything. Whether you agree with the aliens or not, we're all in this together." So let's focus on finding solutions instead of tearing each other apart. Words earned scattered applause, but the tension remained thick. Greg stormed off, muttering under his breath, while others lingered, debating in smaller clusters. Meanwhile, Ethan and Mia met with the federal agents again, this time in a makeshift command center set up at the local high school. Tables were covered with laptops, maps, and stacks of papers, while monitors displayed live feeds from news stations and satellite imagery. The room buzzed with activity as scientists and officials worked tirelessly to analyze every aspect of the situation. Dr. Karen Ellis stood at the front, leading the discussion. Based on the projections, the aliens' primary concern appears to be Earth's environmental collapse. Their message suggests they view humanity as a threat not intentionally malicious, but reckless and self-destructive. So what do we do? Agent Monroe asked. How do we respond? We negotiate, Dr. Ellis replied firmly. They're willing to communicate. We need to find common ground. Show them we're capable of change. Ethan raised his hand tentatively. What if they don't give us a chance? What if they decide we've already gone too far? Dr. Ellis paused, considering the question. Then we appeal to their logic. Prove that humans are worth saving not because we're perfect, but because we're adaptable, because we can learn, grow, and improve. Her words resonated with the group, sparking a renewed sense of determination. Plans were drawn up, strategies outlined, and resources allocated. For the first time since the aliens' arrival, there was a sense of purpose, plan moving forward. That evening, Ethan returned home, exhausted but hopeful. Laura greeted him at the door, her expression softening when she saw the slight smile tugging at his lips. You look better, she said cautiously. I feel better, Ethan admitted, pulling her into a hug. For the first time, I think we actually have a shot at fixing this. Laura rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I hope you're right. In the distance, the alien ship loomed silently, its presence a constant reminder of the stakes. Yet for the first time, it didn't feel entirely threatening. Instead, it felt like a challenge and opportunity for humanity to prove itself worthy of another chance. As Ethan held Laura close, he whispered, We'll get through this, together. And for the first time, in days, he truly believed it. *** document. Part 6 of They Saw It Happen the Exact Moment. Earth stopped being polite ***. The days that followed were a blur of activity in Willow Creek. People worked tirelessly, driven by a mix of fear and hope. The alien ship remained stationary. Above the town, its presence a constant reminder of the task ahead. For Ethan and Mia, life became a whirlwind of meetings, discussions, and preparations as they joined forces with scientists, government officials, and local leaders to craft a response to the aliens' warning in the makeshift command center at the high school. The team pored over every detail of the projections. Dr. Karen Ellis led the effort, her sharp mind cutting through the chaos. She divided the group into smaller teams, each focused on a specific aspect of the problem. One team studied the environmental data, identifying key areas where humanity could make immediate changes. Another team explored potential methods of communication, trying to decipher how best to reach out to the aliens. Ethan and Mia found themselves working closely on this second task, their combined expertise proving invaluable. We need to show them we're serious, Ethan said during one late-night brainstorming session. Not just with words, but with actions. Mia nodded, tapping her pen against her notebook. Agreed. But what kind of action? Planting trees or cleaning rivers won't be enough. They'll see right through anything superficial. Dr. Ellis leaned forward, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. What if we start small, but meaningful? Focus on something visible, something symbolic, like shutting down a major polluter temporarily and replacing it with renewable energy sources. Show them we're capable of change, even if it's not perfect. The idea sparked excitement among the group. Plans were drafted, resources allocated, and within days, the first steps were taken. A nearby coal plant, one of the largest contributors to air pollution in the region, was temporarily shut down. Solar panels and wind turbines were hastily installed as replacements, their sleek designs standing in stark contrast to the rusted machinery they replaced. News of the project spread quickly, drawing attention from around the globe, while the scientific community scrambled for solutions. Tensions in Willow Creek continued to simmer. Greg Parker and his followers grew more vocal, accusing the government and scientists of selling out to the aliens. They argued that humanity shouldn't bow to extraterrestrial demands. No matter how dire the situation, they're testing us. Greg shouted during a heated town hall meeting. If we roll over and do what they say, we lose everything that makes us human. Jake Bennett stood at the front of the room, trying to maintain order. Greg, no one's rolling over. We're adapting. That's what humans do, we adapt. But at what cost? Greg shot back. You think those aliens care about our freedom, our way of life? Once they take control, there's no going back. The argument escalated, voices rising, until it seemed like the meeting might devolve into chaos. Laura Carter, who had come to support Ethan, stepped forward unexpectedly. Her soft voice cut through the noise. Greg, she began, her tone calm but firm. I understand your fears. Really, I do. But fighting isn't going to help anyone. If we don't work together, if we don't try to fix this, then what's left for us? What future are we protecting? Her words struck a nerve. The room fell silent as people considered her question. Even Greg hesitated, his anger faltering under the weight of her logic. Jake seized the moment. Laura's right. Can disagree. All we want, but arguing won't save us. Let's focus on finding common ground instead of tearing each other apart. Reluctantly, Greg sat down, though his scowl suggested he wasn't ready to concede. Still, the tension eased, allowing the meeting to continue without further disruption. As the town grappled with internal divisions, Ethan and Mia prepared for the next phase of their mission. The federal agents informed them that the aliens had extended an invitation a select group of individuals would be allowed aboard the ship to discuss Earth's fate. The news was met with a mix of awe and dread. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he read the message. Why us? He asked Agent Monroe. Why pick ordinary people to negotiate with beings like that? Agent Monroe shrugged. Maybe because you noticed the signal before anyone else. Or maybe they see something and use something worth listening to. Mia chimed in, her voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through her. We have to go. If we turn this down, who knows when or if they'll offer again? Ethan glanced at Laura, who stood quietly nearby. Her face was pale, her hands clenched tightly together. He knew how much it pained her to let him leave, especially after everything they'd been through. But deep down, he also knew she wouldn't. Stop him. I'll go, Ethan said finally, turning back to Agent Monroe. But only if Mia comes too. We've been in this together since the beginning. Mia nodded. Count me in. The night before their departure, Ethan and Mia gathered at Ethan's house with Laura, Jake, and a few close friends. The mood was somber but hopeful, a bittersweet farewell tinged with uncertainty. Noah and Sophie clung to their father, begging him not to leave. You'll come back, right? Sophie asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. Ethan knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. Of course I will. And when I do, we'll tell you all about it. Every single detail. Noah looked up, his young face unusually serious. Be careful. Dad, don't let them trick you. I won't, Ethan promised, ruffling his son's hair. I'll be smart, okay? Just like you. Laura watched the scene unfold, her heart aching but proud. She pulled Ethan aside later, speaking softly so the kids couldn't hear. You don't have to do this, you know. You could stay here with us. Ethan shook his head, his expression resolute. I wish I could. But someone has to try, Laura. If we don't step up now, who will? She nodded, blinking back tears. Then promise me one thing. Come back to us. No matter what happens, come back. I promise, Ethan whispered, holding her close. The next morning, Ethan and Mia arrived at the designated meeting point outside of town. A large crowd had gathered to witness the event, cameras flashing and murmurs rippling through the air. Soldiers kept a perimeter, ensuring order as the two approached the edge of the field, where the aliens had instructed them to wait. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the alien ship descended closer to the ground. Panels slid open, revealing a glowing platform that extended downward. Two figures emerged, not humanoid, but sleek and metallic, their forms shimmering like liquid silver. Their presence was both mesmerizing and intimidating, radiating an aura of power and intelligence. Ethan and Mia exchanged a glance, their nerves taut but determined. Slowly they stepped forward, leaving the safety of the crowd behind. As they approached the platform, one of the figures gestured for them to ascend. Without hesitation, they climbed aboard, their hearts pounding as the platform rose back into the ship. Inside, the environment was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Walls pulsed faintly with light, shifting colors in sync with unseen rhythms. The air smelled clean, almost electric, and the temperature was perfectly balanced. The aliens led them to a chamber filled with floating symbols and holographic displays, their movements fluid and precise. One of the figures turned to face them, its form rippling slightly as it spoke not in words, but directly into their minds. The voice was calm, yet commanding, resonating deep within their thoughts. "You are the representatives of your species," the alien communicated. "Speak. Tell us why we should spare you." Ethan swallowed hard, glancing at Mia. She gave him a small nod, encouraging him to begin. "We made mistakes," Ethan started, his voice trembling but clear. "We hurt our planet, destroyed ecosystems, polluted the air and water. But we're learning. We're trying to change." The alien tilted its head as if considering his words. "Change is insufficient. Action is required." Mia stepped forward, her voice steady. "We understand. That's why we're taking steps, even small ones, to prove we're willing to adapt. To coexist, please, give us a chance to show you." The alien paused, its glowing surface flickering briefly. Then, without another word, it gestured toward a series of holograms displaying Earth's current state. Images of deforestation, melting, ice caps, and dying oceans flashed before them, each accompanied by streams of data highlighting humanity's failures. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to argue, to defend his species, but the evidence was undeniable. Instead, he focused on the positives, the renewable energy projects, the conservation efforts, the growing awareness among people worldwide. He pointed these out too. The alien, emphasizing humanity's capacity for growth and resilience. "We're flawed," Ethan admitted. "But we're also capable of greatness. Give us time, guidance, and we'll prove ourselves worthy." The alien regarded them silently. For a long moment, finally, it spoke again. "Prove it. Act. We will observe." With that, the platform lowered them back to the ground. As Ethan and Mia stepped off, the ship ascended once more, returning to its position above the horizon. The crowd erupted into cheers, though Ethan and Mia felt a mixture of relief and unease. They had been given a chance, but whether humanity could seize it remained to be seen. Back home, Laura greeted Ethan with a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it, Ility." Settle onto his shoulders. "Not yet. This is just the beginning."